Translator's Introduction. The Astavakra Geeta is an ancient spiritual document of great purity and power. Pure because it is relentlessly one-pointed. Every word is aimed at triggering self-realization. No suggestions for self-improvement, no rules for moral behavior, no practical wisdom for daily life. Powerful because the mere reading or repeated reading of it can be enough to send a ripe mind reeling into truth. Little is known about the Astavakra Geeta. Astavakra Geeta is a name that appears in Indian lore, but almost certainly he did not write it. The author, likely an anonymous sage, merely uses the characters of Astavakra and King Janaka to set up a classic dialogue between guru and disciple. It quickly becomes a guru-guru dialogue. However, because after the first salvo of wisdom from Astavakra, Janaka realizes his true self, and from then on they get into an Advaitic jam, session of the highest sort. Because of this, some translators have done away with the dialogue format and attributed everything to Astavakra. Indeed, since all the verses of the Astavakra Geeta exist at the highest possible level of spoken wisdom, it would appear meaningless to attribute some to the teacher and some to his newly enlightened disciple. There is nevertheless a storyline set up in the Astavakra Geeta, and for me it goes something like this. Chapter 1. It all starts when King Janaka asks the sage Astavakra how he can attain knowledge, detachment, liberation. Astavakra tells him. Chapter 2. It works. Upon hearing Astavakra's words, Janaka realizes his true nature. Enraptured, he describes the joy and wonder of his new state. Chapter 3. Astavakra is delighted for Janaka inconsistencies. He fires off a series of confrontational verses about attachment to worldly pleasure. Chapter 4. Janaka asserts that the Lord of the universe can do as he pleases. Chapter 5. Astavakra does not disagree, but in a terse 4 verses points to the next step, dissolution. Chapter 6. Janaka says, I know that already, matching him in style and number of verses. Chapter 7. Unable to leave it at that, however, Janaka goes on to further describe his enlightened state. Chapter 8. Still hearing too much I in Janaka's language, Astavakra instructs him in the subtleties of attachment and bondage. Chapter 9. Astavakra continues to describe the way of true detachment. Chapter 10. Astavakra hammers away at the folly of desire, no matter how elevated or subtle. Chapter 11. Astavakra further describes the state of desirelessness to which he points. Chapter 12. Janaka replies by describing the state of timeless stillness in which he now finds himself. Chapter 13. Janaka, having been instructed by Astavakra in chapter 1 to be happy, reports that he indeed is. Chapter 14. Janaka then summarizes his exalted state with calm indifference. Chapter 15. Impressed but not through teaching, Astavakra relentlessly points to the vast emptiness of self. Chapter 16, Astavakra attacks the futility of effort and knowing. Chapter 17, Astavakra describes the nature of one who is truly free. Chapter 18, finally Astavakra hits him with everything he has got. 100 verses of pure non-duality. If this doesn't do it, nothing will. Chapter 19, it works. Janaka no longer describes his enlightened state, but can speak only in questions, revealing absence. Chapter 20, in a final flurry of questions pointing only at their own meaninglessness, Janaka burns off the last vestiges of personhood and enters dissolution. He ends with, "No more can be said." Astavakra smiles, nods approvingly, and says no more.